They say Hollywood's brightest stars kept their darkest secrets hidden behind locked doors. While the public watched their every move, some of the most iconic names in show business vanished into private hideouts, risking everything for a few forbidden hours. But where did these secret affairs unfold, and what really happened behind those heavy velvet curtains? Stay tuned because some of these addresses are more famous for what never made the headlines than for who walked their halls. Chateau Marmont, Hollywood. In the glittering heart of Hollywood lies an unassuming fortress of secrecy, the Chateau Marmont. Rising above Sunset Boulevard, this hotel has witnessed countless scandalous rendezvous since its opening in 1929. Its walls whisper tales of forbidden romance and dangerous secrets guarded jealously by loyal staff trained in absolute discretion. Jean Harlow, Hollywood's blonde bombshell, and Clark Gable, the leading man with a reputation for charm, frequently sought refuge in its exclusive bungalows far from prying eyes. The Chateau Marmont became synonymous with hidden affairs when Marilyn Monroe discreetly entered under an assumed name to meet her lovers, shielded by the hotel's strict confidentiality policy. Even notorious recluse Howard Hughes found solace in the chateau's secrecy, using it as a private hideaway to meet actresses and starlets who captured his fleeting attention. Decades later, this tradition of clandestine luxury continued with actors like James Dean and Natalie Wood slipping quietly into suites safely away from paparazzi lenses. These hidden encounters were not just for romance, but served as protection against the rigid moral clauses imposed by powerful Hollywood studios. The chateau's promise of privacy allowed celebrities the rare freedom to express themselves openly behind closed doors. To this day, Chateau Marmont maintains its reputation as Hollywood's ultimate sanctuary, an unspoken safe harbor where the rich, famous, and infamous alike still retreat to indulge in their most secretive desires. The Roosevelt Hotel, Hollywood. Nestled in the beating heart of Hollywood, the Roosevelt Hotel was more than just a glamorous address. It was a secret theater of romance, envy, and risky liaisons. Since opening in 1927, its Spanish colonial halls and palm-shaded pool became a magnet for the movie industry's brightest stars, especially those seeking privacy from the ever-present glare of public curiosity. Frank Sinatra and Ava Gardner, whose passionate and volatile relationship could never quite survive the spotlight, frequently checked in under aliases to the hotel's most secluded suites. The Roosevelt offered a promise. What happened behind its doors stayed there, protected by doormen who turned a blind eye and staff who'd seen it all but said nothing. Even as the hotel hosted the first Academy Awards and welcomed legends like Charlie Chaplin and Carole Lombard, its less visible legacy lay in the stolen hours shared between forbidden couples. Rumors of secret tunnels and service elevators only added to the Roosevelt's allure, helping stars slip in and out undetected. The hotel's penthouse parties, legendary for their revelry, became known as much for their after-hour secrets as their A-list guest lists. Within the Roosevelt's softly lit corridors, more than a few careers and marriages were put at risk, proving that in Hollywood, the line between business and pleasure has always been razor-thin. Today, the Roosevelt stands as a monument not just to cinematic history, but to the carefully hidden passions that fueled it. The Ambassador Hotel, Los Angeles. If ever there was a place where Hollywood's facade met its shadowy reality, it was the Ambassador Hotel. Its gilded lobby and legendary Coconut Grove nightclub attracted A-listers, politicians, and musicians night after night. But for stars looking to keep affairs out of the public eye, the real action happened upstairs, in the plush soundproof hotel suites that seemed built for secrecy. Joan Crawford was a frequent guest, often checking in under an alias, entertaining both studio heads and secret lovers far from the judgmental gaze of studio PR teams. The ambassador's staff were hand-picked for loyalty. Bellboys were tipped handsomely to forget familiar faces, and housekeepers were trained to ignore the messes that only the heart could make. Studio fixers, men whose entire job was to keep scandal out of the headlines, would use the ambassador's back entrances and service elevators to sneak lovers in and out, bypassing the lobby's watchful eyes. The hotel's upper floors became an unspoken territory where stars could shed their public persona, if only for a few hours. A-list affairs unfolded against the backdrop of the city's endless lights, and the Coconut Grove's after-hours parties were legendary for their excess and discretion. Some of the era's most talked-about breakups and makeups began and sometimes ended within these walls. While the ambassador's fate was sealed with the end of the old studio system and its eventual demolition, its secrets linger, preserved in diaries, rumor, and the unbreakable code of those who lived and loved there in the shadows. Garden of Allah Hotel, Sunset Boulevard. Tucked away on Sunset Boulevard once stood the infamous Garden of Allah Hotel, a lavish retreat of Spanish-style villas that became Hollywood's clandestine playground from the 1920s to its closure in 1959. Its lush gardens and secluded bungalows offered the perfect cover for celebrity indiscretions, becoming synonymous with romantic escapades and hidden debauchery. Legendary screen rogue Errol Flynn frequented its shadowy corners, notorious for hosting parties where privacy was strictly maintained, enabling discreet encounters away from gossip columnists' prying eyes. Legendary screen rogue Errol Flynn frequented its shadowy corners, notorious for hosting parties where privacy was strictly maintained, enabling discreet encounters away from gossip columnists' prying eyes. The ambassador's staff were hand-picked for loyalty. Bellboys were tipped handsomely to forget familiar faces, and housekeepers were trained to ignore the messes that only the heart could make. Choctaw full of chocolate boxes. Marlene Dietrich, the sultry German actress, was known to occupy the hotel's quieter corners for hushed meetings, while Tallulah Bankhead's notoriously wild parties echoed scandal through Hollywood, safely contained within the garden's secure perimeter. Even Humphrey Bogart, Hollywood's tough-talking leading man, and his secret love, Lauren Bacall, found the Garden of Allah an indispensable ally, using it to nurture their budding romance quietly before it was revealed to the world. The hotel's reputation became so entwined with secretive luxury and discreet affairs that it drew attention from stars and starlets seeking protection from scandal and scrutiny. Rumors swirled that secret tunnels and hidden entrances facilitated these clandestine meetings, enhancing the aura of intrigue surrounding this Hollywood landmark. Although the Garden of Allah was demolished in 1959, replaced by banks and office buildings, its legacy endures in Hollywood lore, a symbol of an era where secrecy was power and hidden romance was the norm. Hotel del Coronado, San Diego. Far from the prying eyes of Los Angeles, but still within reach of its star-studded cast, the Hotel del Coronado stood as a beacon of Victorian elegance and, just as importantly, discretion. Opened in 1888, its grand red-roofed silhouette offered seclusion that was practically purpose-built for the romantic escapades of Hollywood's most celebrated names. In the Golden Age, the Del, the queen of the California coast, hosted some of the most closely guarded trysts in show business. Marilyn Monroe, during the filming of Some Like It Hot, was rumored to have met with secret lovers in rooms tucked away from the main corridors. Studio heads and producers used the hotel's sprawling grounds to keep scandalous pairings out of the headlines, while stars like Rudolph Valentino and Clara Bow enjoyed sun-drenched afternoons that slipped into discreet, champagne-fueled evenings behind shuttered balcony doors. Staff at the Del were fiercely royal, enforcing a code of silence that gave nervous guests the comfort of anonymity. The hotel's sprawling verandas, hidden gardens, and private beachfront made it the perfect getaway for those who needed to disappear, even for just one night. Here, whispered promises and forbidden passion mingled with the salt air, and every suite seemed to hold its own secrets. To this day, the Hotel del Coronado's golden halls echo with stories of love affairs that changed the course of Hollywood history and, just as often, ruined reputations. Falcon Lair, Beverly Hills. Perched high above Benedict Canyon, the secluded estate known as Falcon Lair was built by Rudolph Valentino, silent film's original Latin lover, as a retreat from Hollywood's relentless attention. After Valentino's early death, the estate passed through many hands, but its reputation for intrigue and secrecy only grew. Gloria Swanson, one of Hollywood's first queens of scandal, made Falcon Lair her private refuge, using the house's maze of rooms and sprawling grounds to shield her most intimate affairs from prying eyes. Here, behind wrought iron gates and high hedges, lovers could escape the world, if only for a night or a weekend. Neighbors whispered about limousines arriving under cover of darkness, about laughter and music drifting through open windows long after midnight, and about guests whose names never appeared on any official list. Falcon Lair was more than just a mansion. It was a stage set for private drama, where the rules of the outside world simply did not apply. Friends and lovers were invited by personal code, and staff were carefully chosen for their loyalty and silence. Beverly Hills Hotel's bungalows. Just off the famed Sunset Boulevard lies an enclave of private retreats hidden within the lush gardens of the Beverly Hills Hotel. Since its inception in 1912, these secluded retreats had become a safe haven for Hollywood's elite seeking discretion for their illicit affairs. Among the hotel's most notorious guests were Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, whose tempestuous and headline-grabbing romance began quietly behind bungalow doors away from Hollywood's judgmental gaze. Even President John F. Kennedy reportedly visited Marilyn Monroe in one of these secluded cottages, a story still whispered today despite official denials. Frank Sinatra, the smooth-talking crooner known for his turbulent love life, found solace here with Ava Gardner, the two often slipping in and out unnoticed, shielded by the hotel's unwavering privacy standards. Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy's legendary clandestine relationship thrived within these walls, away from their carefully managed public images, safely hidden behind carefully drawn curtains. The hotel's management, notorious for protecting their guests' secrets at all costs, ensured no whisper escaped, safeguarding reputations and careers from scandal. The allure of the Beverly Hills Hotel lay not only in its elegance and prestige, but also in its ironclad commitment to discretion. These bungalows, unmarked and shielded by dense foliage, became synonymous with romantic secrecy, serving as silent witnesses to some of Hollywood's most forbidden relationships, forever sealing their place in the glamorous yet shadowy tapestry of film history. Ciro's nightclub, Sunset Strip. To outsiders, Ciro's was a glittering paradise of live music, laughter, and endless champagne, a place where movie stars held court and the cameras flashed all night. But to the initiated, Ciro's was also a labyrinth of hidden corners, VIP lounges, and off-limits back rooms where affairs and secret deals blossomed far from the curious gaze of the city. The club's owner, Herman Hover, knew exactly how to build a fortress of privacy within the chaos, offering the perfect cover for stars like Lana Turner and Johnny Stompanato, whose dangerous liaison would eventually make headlines for all the wrong reasons. Security at Ciro's wasn't just about bouncers at the door. It was an entire code of conduct enforced by staff who understood that some guests needed more than just good service. They needed invisibility. High-backed booths were arranged for privacy, and a single nod from a famous face would send waiters scurrying to clear a space in the back room away from the public eye. For many, Ciro's was a place to flirt, dance, and test boundaries that could never be crossed in daylight. For others, it was a last refuge, one of the only places where a forbidden romance might breathe without fear. The club's legacy, long after it closed, wasn't just the memory of wild nights and swinging bands. It was the knowledge that for a precious few, Ciro's made the impossible feel safe, if only until the sun came up. Lake Arrowhead's Castle Lodge. Hidden deep in the pine-forested hills northeast of Los Angeles, Lake Arrowhead's Castle Lodge became one of the Golden Era's best-kept secrets, a rustic retreat for stars whose private lives would have sparked tabloid firestorms if ever discovered. Unlike the glamorous hotels of Hollywood, Castle Lodge didn't draw attention with glitz. Instead, it was all about seclusion. Tucked behind winding roads and dense trees, the estate was a favorite escape for actors like Clark Gable, who was rumored to meet secret lovers here, and Greta Garbo, whose reclusive tendencies were legendary. Away from the studio system's tight leash and the city's gossip columns, these stars could relax, breathe, and let their guard down. Here, affairs flourished in quiet cabins beside moonlit waters, safe from the lurking lenses of the press. Legend has it that entire weekends would pass with no one but a loyal caretaker and the Hollywood elite in residence, indulging in romance, private dinners, and stolen glances by the fireplace. For some, it was a temporary reprieve from a world built on appearances. For others, a place where love could finally feel real, even if just for a fleeting moment. Castle Lodge's exact guestbook remains shrouded in mystery, but the stories that survive of whispered conversations on starlit decks and star-crossed lovers fleeing back to the city at dawn have cemented its place as one of Hollywood's most alluring and discreet sanctuaries. The Beverly Wilshire Hotel. Set at the iconic corner of Wilshire Boulevard and Rodeo Drive, the Beverly Wilshire was the crown jewel of Beverly Hills. Luxurious, sophisticated, and above all, private. In a town built on fantasy, this hotel offered something even rarer, sanctuary for the stars, whose real lives were far messier than their movie roles. Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy, Hollywood's most whispered-about couple, carried on a decades-long affair within these walls, slipping into private suites where they could let down the facade. To the world, Tracy was a family man, and Hepburn the fiercely independent actress. At the Beverly Wilshire, they were just two people desperate for a few stolen hours together. The hotel's staff were chosen for their discretion. Doormen remembered faces but never names, and maids were paid well to keep secrets. For others, the Wilshire's plush interiors became the stage for dangerous romances and business dealings best left unrecorded. When the press did come calling, management shut the doors tight and let no detail escape. It was a rule that protected not just reputations, but livelihoods. In an era when even a hint of scandal could end a career, the Beverly Wilshire became an oasis for Hollywood's risk-takers, letting them gamble on love and lust in privacy. Decades later, after the gossip columns had moved on, the stories lived on in the Wilshire's gilded halls, if only you knew where to listen. Hearst Castle, San Simeon. On the misty hills above California's central coast, Hearst Castle rises like a fortress out of myth, a sprawling monument to access, secrecy, and desire. Built by media titan William Randolph Hearst, this estate was never just a home. It was a private stage where Hollywood's most powerful players and most beautiful stars acted out scenes away from the public's harsh spotlight. Its guest list reads like a who's who of Golden Age royalty. Charlie Chaplin, Greta Garbo, Cary Grant, and, at the very heart of the castle's legend, Marion Davies, Hearst's own mistress. The guest houses scattered across the property were far more than opulent accommodations. They were sanctuaries where high-profile affairs played out under the cover of Spanish rooftops and cypress trees. It was no secret among insiders that Hearst's protection meant freedom for his guests to mingle, flirt, and rendezvous away from nosy reporters. Rumors of secret passageways and hidden corridors persist to this day, fueled by the castle's labyrinthine layout. Even as wild parties raged in the grand halls, private romances flourished out of sight, shielded by loyal staff in the castle's remote location. Here, the boundaries between the powerful and the vulnerable blurred. Scandal was both risk and currency. To the world, Hearst Castle was a symbol of American ambition. To Hollywood's elite, it was a rare place where forbidden love could survive, if only for a weekend beneath the watchful eyes of its enigmatic owner. Macombo nightclub's secret rooms. When the sun went down on Sunset Strip, Macombo nightclub came alive with music, laughter, and secrets. More than just the hottest ticket in town, Macombo was a glittering stage for Hollywood's beautiful people. And what the public didn't see was even more sensational than what played out in the spotlight. Beyond the leopard print booths and the neon-lit bar, the club hid a network of private rooms and back corridors designed for those who needed to slip away unnoticed. For Rita Hayworth, whose dazzling beauty was the envy of every producer, Macombo's shadowy nooks became the scene of more than one forbidden rendezvous. Orson Welles, a frequent guest and notorious womanizer, reportedly used the club's secret side rooms to entertain actresses and keep his affairs under wraps, at least until the morning papers found something juicier to print.
Managers, tipped handsomely to keep their silence, orchestrated elaborate escapes for their star clients. Musicians like Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. would disappear between sets, only to reappear an hour later, rumors swirling about who might have joined them behind those velvet curtains. And while the club's main floor was all flashbulbs and fanfare, the true stories, whispered arguments, passionate reunions, lovers caught in the act, were quietly swept up and locked away each night. Macombo's private spaces became a kind of currency, traded in favors and confidences among the elite. In an era when a single headline could ruin a career, the club's unspoken promise of discretion made it as essential to Hollywood's hidden affairs as the stars themselves. By the time dawn broke over the Strip, the evidence was already gone, leaving only rumors, regrets, and the memory of one more secret night at Macombo. Palm Springs Hideaways. Long before Palm Springs was synonymous with music festivals and mid-century design, it was Hollywood's secret desert escape, a town built on the promise of discretion. Remote enough to evade the columnists, but close enough for a quick drive from Los Angeles, it quickly became the getaway for stars who craved privacy above all. Cary Grant and Randolph Scott famously shared a house here, their friendship and rumored romance shielded by high hedges and the town's unspoken live and let live policy. For decades, the desert air crackled with gossip about who was in town and with whom, but little of it ever made the papers. Secluded villas and Spanish-style bungalows dotted the landscape, each a private sanctuary for the rich and restless. Marriages were tested, affairs began, and some of Hollywood's best-kept secrets stayed that way, thanks to the loyalty of local staff and the code of silence that defined Palm Springs society. It was an ideal setting for stars like Rock Hudson, who could never have risked such freedom in Los Angeles, but found something close to home among the palm trees and swimming pools. Even today, many of these hideaways remain, their histories told in whispered tours and cryptic plaques, silent witnesses to a time when the desert sun revealed everything except what happened behind closed doors. In Palm Springs, for once, the real drama happened off-screen, and only the stars and the desert wind knew the full story.